Oh my goodness, it's been way too long since I made a video. I seriously think it's been about 2 weeks. Honestly, you know, I talk on here a lot about mental health, and that's part of the ebb and flow of life. I want to put out the best content as I possibly can, and just over the past 2 weeks, I felt like I couldn't do that under the circumstances of everything that was kind of providing a lot of stress. I had to kind of step away, focus on those things for a little bit, but now I'm back on track making, obviously, this video for everybody. So it's good to be back. It's good to be making more content. I just want to thank you all so much for sticking with me through all of that, through everything. Like, honestly, I'm so appreciative of all of you. I've been getting such encouraging messages, DMs on Instagram and on YouTube too. So thank you all so much for literally just everything, for all of the support. I don't want to waste any time. I want to dive right into it. This topic actually came from a suggestion from somebody who DM'd me and asked if I could talk about this. And so if you want to hear me talk about anything specific, let me know in the comments or DM me on Instagram. This topic it's a big one. I'm gonna give my best shot at it. It was such a huge part, a huge barrier for me going through my eating disorder, going through anorexia, and it was really hard to overcome. And that is overcoming the fear and anxiety surrounding gaining weight. Now, I feel like a lot of this can also apply to just life in general, you know, gaining weight. I mean, we're all gonna gain weight at a lot of different points in our lives. This is coming from the perspective of an eating disorder, of anorexia, but also it can apply to just everything else, people who don't have an eating disorder as well. You know, during my time in anorexia, I really had to fight against that fear and anxiety of gaining weight at 2 points in time. At first, when I was in middle school and high school, or in the first phase of my anorexia, and then when I relapsed, I also experienced that pushback of fear against gaining weight again. So I have things that I've learned in my 7 years, during my 7-year stint of recovery, truly, that has helped me be okay with gaining weight. Some of them, a lot of people might not be able to do all these at once, but a lot of these are meant to be just kind of really small things that you do consistently over a long period of time that will then hopefully really help your mindset to shift towards being okay with this. Okay, tip number 1 is to simply ask yourself why you are afraid of gaining weight. It sounds so simple, okay? But from what I've seen in talking to a lot of other people who are going through everything, going through eating disorders, and knowing myself full well, I certainly did not take time to stop and ask myself how or why I felt afraid of gaining weight. It simply stopped there. I knew that I was afraid, and the eating disorder part of me made it stop at that point in time. I didn't take it any further. I didn't ask myself why. I didn't like break it down into really talking myself through how I felt. And the point of this, to ask yourself why, is to really identify the root cause of where all of this fear is coming from. I've really found that if you can talk through all of this, all the way down to its root, you yourself can then kind of really understand where you're coming from, and almost kind of logically talk yourself into being okay with it. Now, I experienced this through years of therapy, right? This is one main thing that came from therapy for me. But I found that now, in my college days, and now simply talking myself through it has allowed me to take control over that fear. So I want to give you an example. So before I would dive into this, like I mentioned, I would not want to gain weight. I would have a lot of fear and anxiety around gaining weight, that just because, and that's where it would stop. I wouldn't go into it all. So when I started to really ask the question why, it led into, okay, well, I'm afraid to gain weight. Why am I afraid? And I actually sat down and wrote all this out, talked myself through it. Why am I afraid of gaining weight? I am afraid of gaining weight because I don't want to get fat. And then I had to talk and process myself through that. Well, why am I afraid of getting fat? Does that even matter? Does it matter? Why am I so afraid of that? And then from that, it led into me truly realizing that I cared a lot about what other people thought of me, of how I could help hold control over this in my life, hold control over weight in my life. I was afraid that I would not be good enough if I gained weight. I was afraid that I wasn't good enough anyway. And I learned, honestly, a lot about myself in that question, but almost like a self-interrogation kind of. Because I talked myself through this process, I was kind of able to unravel my why, and almost really fight against the eating disorder with this path of logic that I had developed from asking myself why. I was able to look at those things that I'd written out, that timeline, my timeline of why, talking through my fear of weight gain, and really fight against my eating disorder, realizing that the root cause of everything was my fear of not being good enough. I knew then that I had to, especially again in my college days, I knew that I had to process through and work through that. And if I would process through and work through that, that would then lead into me being okay with gaining weight. All that to say, ask yourself, even write out if you have to, why you are afraid, why you have anxiety and fear around gaining weight. Tip number 2 is the realization truly that not everything that's good for you is going to feel good. Gaining weight did not feel good for me, and so because of that I thought that it was bad. I thought that it wasn't a good thing to do, but that's not true. A lot of things that are good for us are going to make us uncomfortable. In fact, that's probably true in just about every aspect of life. Being uncomfortable puts us in a position to grow, puts us in a position to become our best selves. Weight gain is not about being comfortable. If this whole recovery process was simply about being comfortable, the eating disorder would take over every single aspect and area of life. You will be afraid, you will be anxious, you will be fearful, you will be uncomfortable, and that's okay. It's okay to feel those things. I had to constantly reassure myself, and also had to have other people constantly reassure me that I was on the right path by gaining weight, because it felt not good, because it was so scary, because it was so uncomfortable. I wanted to say, because this feels so out there, so bad, I don't think it's a good thing. If you are uncomfortable during the process, the entire process of recovery, that means you're doing it right. Tip number 3, there is no magic pill, there's no magic solution, there's no silver bullet really for this, and that's okay. I said this before, it's going to take time. I think that in my conversation with a lot of people, and thinking back to myself back then, it would have been awesome to hear someone tell me something and then not be afraid of gaining weight anymore, and then just like the next day I wake up and I can like recover. Unfortunately, that's not the case. There isn't like a pill or like anything that you can take to make you okay or not fearful of gaining weight. It's taken a lot of time to get into this mindset, and so because of that, it's actually going to take time to get out of that mindset as well. Basically, the third tip is that, but the third tip also is to really just not beat yourself up through this entire process. It's going to take time. You will fall down and you will pick yourself back up, and that's okay. It's part of the process. I don't think recovery is about succumbing to fear. I think recovery is being fearful, recognizing that fear, looking at it, and pushing past it, whether that's through you and your strength or with other people to help you push past that as well. That leads me into the fourth tip, which is to get support. I cannot emphasize this enough, but support is huge. Support for this whole process of gaining weight. Somebody or a group of people, whether it's your parents, your friends, or somebody online, Instagram, different people on Instagram, wherever it is, someone who can support you through this process, who can be there for you to process things with. I will say that having someone like a therapist who is dedicated to helping ask these difficult questions to you, it's just gonna help a lot. Fifth tip, realization, recognition that you are in control. This is something that will take time to really get a grip on, but once you do, it will be a complete game changer for the process of gaining weight. Kind of the biggest fear that I had with gaining weight is that it would get out of control. Talking about mental processes that would stop at a certain point, I was truly fearful that I would keep on gaining weight, that I wouldn't be able to stop, that I would gain way too much weight, and that I could never turn things around because I'd worked so hard to be skinny. I was afraid that gaining weight would be an all or nothing scenario. In other words, I was afraid that I either had to gain so much weight that I would not be happy with myself or not gain weight at all. And that's not the case. That's not true. This is not an all or nothing scenario. You are in control, of course, with like the help of professionals and the help of learning how much to gain and how much you can handle at one time. No matter what, you are in control of what happens. So if you feel good and you feel like you can handle another extra muffin that day, then awesome. You're in control, you can take that muffin, you can eat it. If you feel like you're going to have a complete mental breakdown from gaining a pound in this week, okay, take a step back, maybe say, okay, I would rather gain half a pound this week than gain a pound this week or have a mental breakdown and risk losing 10 more pounds. So you have the control then to say, okay, maybe just this week I need to pull back a little bit, or I can't quite jump to that 1 pound per per week thing. So I'm gonna start with half a pound a week, see how I feel. And then the next week, since I realize that I feel so good about gaining half a pound, like I have control over that, I'm gonna bump that up to a pound. See how I feel about that. Then maybe bump it up to 1.5 pounds that week. It's all about taking steps to realize what you can handle that won't put you in a really difficult spot, push you backwards. Doing that in that moment and then taking it literally one step, one day at a time. Most important thing in all of this is that you are gaining weight consistently over time. Number 6, this one is also really important. All these are really important, I guess, but this one is to try your best to stop comparing food that you eat to the amount of food that other people are eating. So I think there was a lot of fear for me that popped up around thinking things like, oh, well, I'm eating this much. Everyone else my age is eating that much. I'm eating way much more than all these people. This is not good. That idea, that comparison really created a lot of fear in me, a lot of anxiety, which ended up making me not make progress, made me not make progress for a long time. But that comparison, it's not a good comparison because the truth was I was in a completely different spot than all of my peers. And of course, like all my peers had stuff going on in their lives. My thing in that time, in middle school, high school, and college, my thing was food. My thing was an eating disorder. Because that was my thing, I could not compare myself to what everyone else was eating. Your eating disorder brain is going to try to come up with as many excuses as possible to be afraid to make progress in the right direction. This thing of comparison, of comparing the amount of food you're eating to other people, is an easy way for your eating disorder brain to try and trick you. Right now, you are on your own path. You are dedicated to this recovery, and that's something that other people aren't working through right now. Again, they're working through their own stuff, but this right now is your thing, and that's okay. Tip number 7, again, this is coming from me. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a specialized eating disorder therapist at all. I'm someone who's been through it. This is what I recommend. Go slow if you need to. It's this pressure to gain weight incredibly fast, like very fast. A lot of weight very fast can sometimes, not for everybody, but can sometimes really put people in a really tough spot, in a position where if they don't have the right support, they don't have certain things in place, can actually end up forcing them into the opposite direction, meaning losing more weight. Fortunately, I had an incredible support. I had an incredible team of people who were really helping me push through gaining weight pretty fast. But I would rather have people go slow if they need to and gain weight consistently every single week than to put those people in a really tough, hard to handle spot and to go backwards and to lose weight. I would rather have people in an eating disorder gain half a pound a week than lose a pound a week. Tip number 8, very simple one. Realization that your body, you will not keep on gaining weight forever. Again, I thought that I would be gaining weight forever and that it would never stop and that I would really be sad about gaining so much weight for the rest of my life. In all reality, that's not true at all. As someone who has been through it, you will reach a spot, you will reach a point as you're gaining weight where this switch will kind of flip in your brain, okay? It's like a physiological response to the weight gain, where your body is no longer in survival mode. Past that point, things become a little easier. But during my time in recovery, I kind of thought that the therapist, nutritionists, and maybe even my parents, my support group, were kind of trying to I thought they were against me. This was my eating disorder brain. I can tell you, again, as someone who's been through it twice, these people want you to find that good, solid equilibrium. So hey, you won't have to gain weight forever. You will find a spot where your mind and your body are in sync and you feel incredible. Tip number 9. You gotta get out of your head. I was so stuck in my head, meaning all these thoughts that were going on in my brain, all these emotions, I didn't talk to anybody about them. I really didn't even write them out. And that is really what got me into the whole mess in the first place, but it's also what really prevented me from gaining weight, being okay with gaining weight. Being stuck in my head so much, being stuck in my own thoughts, really almost created these eating disorder principles that I stuck to, these food rules basically. Because I had established them, I never questioned them. Because I was in my head, I never questioned them, and I stuck with them for a long time. My encouragement to you is to mix life up, to do things outside of food that you can feel accomplished from. Whether it's a hobby or whether it's focusing on school, still focusing on gaining weight and working through recovery, but also focusing on building confidence in these other areas outside of food specifically. I found that the confidence that came from working in these other areas, building these friendships, these relationships, the confidence that came from that also helped bleed into food, bled into my eating disorder recovery and helped push me forward into being okay with gaining weight. This one's pretty specific for weight gain. It's what really helped me during the second leg of my recovery during college, and that was to set small, clear weight gain goals. So even the mental difference between saying, okay, Cameron, this month you have to gain 30 pounds. Okay, that's a pretty extreme example. Cameron, over the next 3 months you have to gain 30 pounds. My eating disorder brain processing 30 pounds of weight gain, couldn't handle it, didn't want to do it, scared me to death. Saying something like, okay, Cameron, every week you just have to gain 1 pound. Every week you just have to gain half a pound. I'll look at that number, the 1 or half a pound compared to 30 pounds, and I'm thinking, okay, I can do that. But the thing is that pound or that half a pound compounded every single week over the next 3 months, you will get to where you need to be, and it will be easier to digest for you. And those small, clear goals are gonna help make sure that you're accountable for gaining this weight, but also make sure that it's digestible so that you can actually handle processing what it means to actually gain that weight for yourself. Next one is to pay attention to how you feel. So this is one thing that I did not do in middle school and high school, but that I did do in college that helped me be okay with gaining weight. I found that as I gained weight, I felt better physically, I felt better mentally, I had more energy overall. I did not, however, in middle school, take time to stop and recognize that. I didn't even look at that. I really didn't even know that it was happening. But the second time around, when I was in college, as I was gaining weight, I really started asking myself how I felt. Hey, how do I feel today? How do I feel? A, how do I feel about gaining weight? But B, how mentally is my head clear? Do I have more energy? Do I feel like I slept well? And in a lot of those cases, the answer was always yes. Like, yes, I have more energy actually. Yes, I actually got more sleep. And yes, I feel like I can do more every single day. It's the recognition that as I was gaining weight, all these positive changes were happening in my body and just in my life in general. And so I really started recognizing that weight gain is actually a very positive thing. Weight gain was helping me achieve things that I couldn't have achieved or couldn't achieve when I was in the middle of everything because I simply didn't have the energy. It is a positive association of gaining weight with just about everything else in life. So ask yourself, a lot of these things are kind of internal. Like half of them probably are internal things and half of them are external. This is another example of something internal that needs to happen to start really associating positivity with weight gain. Write it down if you have to. You will recognize those positive changes that come as a result of weight change. This last one it's kind of general, but it's really important. Basically, you need something to fall back on. You need an anchor that goes beyond the reasoning of an eating disorder brain. You need something solid. If there's one thing you need out of all these things, you need one solid foundation that you can hold on to when those thoughts of fear and anxiety come surrounding gaining weight. So if there's one thing that you pull from this video, my hope is that you think through what that one foundational thing can be that you can hold on to and stick to, because those thoughts of fear and anxiety are still going to come. And again, that's okay. But having this one thing, at least one thing that you can hold on to when those things come, it's gonna help so much. For some people, it is truly a weight goal. For some, it's the word of a doctor or nutritionist that they trust. For others, it's encouragement from family or friends to keep on going. For others, even it's the sign of that fear, those feelings of fear itself, as an indicator that you're on the right track to keep on going. Whatever it is, find that anchor, that one thing that will always be with you so that when these things come, if you do fall back, you can fall back onto this foundation that will then kind of push you forward to keep on going. It's kind of like a fail-safe. It's this option, it's this such a solid foundation that is going to fight against your eating disorder in every way possible. You will feel fear and anxiety at first, maybe for a while, that's okay. But as you continue to push into recovery, which will happen, recovery is possible and you are taking steps right now to get closer to where you want to be. As you continue on that upward trend, that good path, that fear of gaining weight won't seem so fearful. You won't be as anxious, maybe even a little bit. Maybe certain days will be more fearful and anxious than others. But as you continue on this path, there will be more good days than bad. I can promise you that. That's all my perspective. That's all my perspective on overcoming fear and anxiety surrounding weight gain. If there are other ways that you are using to really overcome that fear, to overcome that anxiety, let me know down in the comments below, because other people can really benefit from that information. Again, I know that I didn't cover everything. There's no way that I could. So if you could, putting your own tips down below will help other people see them and other people relate to them. So put those in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on all this. Hey, it's good to be back. Good to be making videos again. I definitely look forward to putting out a video every single week. Cool. Yeah, people, that's it. If you have anything else for me, please let me know. DM me on Instagram. As always, love talking to all of you. You all got this. You're on the right path. I'm gonna put up some other videos right here that I've put out in the past that maybe have other topics that would be helpful for you. So check those out if you want to. I'll be here. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for stopping by.